Everyone, let's jump right into today's explainer. We're tackling a topic that honestly sits incredibly heavy on the shoulders of so many business owners right now. It's called The Arithmetic of Escape, Navigating MCA Relief. Today, we're going to decode the harsh, often hidden realities of merchant cash advances. And, more importantly, we're going to map out a totally logical, structured path to actual relief. So, if you've ever felt completely boxed in by short-term business financing, you'll definitely want to stick around for this.
The source material puts it perfectly. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that business owners rarely speak aloud. We aren't just talking about the typical tiredness from working long hours or fighting through tough markets. No, this is that hollow, grinding weight of knowing that literally every single dollar your business brings in is already spoken for before it even hits your bank account. And the wild part, the company taking that cash, they aren't losing a wink of sleep over your survival. It's this silent, crushing burden, and simply acknowledging it is our very first step to dismantling it.
Look, a merchant cash advance was probably pitched to you as an absolute lifeline, right? Fast capital, no collateral, approved in hours. But if you look closely at the actual definition, an MCA is the purchase of your future receivables at a discount. Notice what's missing. It is not, technically speaking, a traditional loan. And why does that matter? Well, because that one little legal distinction places MCAs completely outside the standard lending regulations and usury limits that are there to protect borrowers in almost every other situation. Which brings us to a rather harsh reality check. Because an MCA isn't officially a loan, there are zero usury limits capping how much they can charge you. There are no legally mandated APR disclosures. None. Instead, they use what are called factor rates. And since repayment is tied to a percentage of your daily deposits, having a slow week doesn't hit pause on your obligation. It just stretches out the pain while the debt keeps piling up. So, what do those factor rates actually hide? Try 150%. Yeah, 150. A factor rate might look like this tiny, harmless decimal on your contract, but when you translate that into an actual annual percentage rate, seeing 40%, 80%, or even a mind-blowing 150% APR is completely normal in this unregulated framework. You thought you were making a logical move for quick cash, but the math is literally engineered to punish you. And this setup inevitably leads right into what's known as the stacking trap. This is where things go from kinda tough to totally unsustainable. It goes like this. First, you get squeezed by the daily draw of your initial advance, right? You don't have enough cash to actually run your business. So what do? You take out a second advance just to bridge the gap. Then comes the third, stacking debt on top of debt until your cash flow is entirely devoured. The exact money you took to survive becomes the very thing ensuring you can't thrive. Okay, moving into our first section. The refinancing illusion. Let's talk about the gap between your head and your heart. Intellectually, you know that refinancing into another high-cost product isn't actually relief, it's just relocation. Taking on more debt to pay off old debt is just pushing the timeline of your financial pain down the road. It's like trying to put out a fire by pouring gasoline on it and calling it a controlled burn. Actual relief, on the other hand, means extinguishing the fire by reducing the principal amount you owe. Think about it this way. Interest on top of interest is not a solution. It is the problem wearing a different coat. But here's the thing. When you're under severe financial stress, desperation can completely short-circuit your logic. The promise of fast cash looks really good again because the panic of today feels so much more urgent than the cost of tomorrow. And predatory lending thrives right in that 18-inch gap between your logical brain and your panicked heart. So we need to ask a question that completely flips the script here. What if there were a way to substantially lower your monthly MCA payment without taking on a single dollar of new debt? Just let that sink in for a second. We want to pivot away from the stress of the trap and start looking at the possibility of a very real, tangible way out. Which brings us to Section 2, a different arithmetic. Let's look at structured debt relief. Structured MCA debt relief operates on a completely different wavelength than refinancing. Instead of just swapping one bad deal for another, this approach actually renegotiates or restructures your current obligation. The goal isn't to move your debt to a new lender. The goal is to actually shrink what you owe every month. You are bringing the actual total down, no new contracts required. And the impact of doing this? It's huge. 40. That's the percentage reduction we're talking about here. This strategy can often slash your monthly payment burden by 40% or even more. And again, the absolute best part, you achieve this without borrowing a single new dollar. This is the real arithmetic of escape. It's about getting your daily lived reality back below that panic threshold. Relief is not a new loan in disguise. Relief is the actual reduction of what you carry. A 40% drop isn't just some nice-sounding economic theory. It's the very real, day-to-day reality of running your company. It is literally the difference between making payroll and completely missing it. It's the difference between having the cash to operate next week or spending next week putting out fires in a cold sweat.
All right, our final section, the path forward. Let's talk about taking decisive action.
First things first, we need to qualify your specific situation. Ask yourself, do you owe more than $150,000 to an MCA lender right now? If your business is carrying an MCA debt over that $150,000 mark and the daily payments are literally suffocating your cash flow, then this structured relief isn't just an option, it's a critical turning point. This is where you have to move from feeling resigned to taking control.
So how do you actually start? Well, the first step is surprisingly simple. It's just a conversation. That's it. There are no new contracts to sign right out of the gate. There are absolutely no new cash advances. You're just having a candid talk with someone who deeply understands this bizarre MCA landscape, and the focus is 100% on one thing, bringing your current number down, period.
If you are hitting that breaking point, the source material actually provides a direct line for taking this step. You can reach out to Kenneth Corey over at Clear Channel Business Financial Services. You can call or text him directly at 954-815-2280, or just shoot him an email at ken@probbizfunding.com. He's an expert at navigating this exact terrain, specifically focusing on relief for businesses stuck with MCA obligations of $150,000 or more. I want to leave you guys with one final, incredibly important question to chew on. Is your business just going to barely survive another week under this crushing weight? Or are you finally going to give it the oxygen it actually needs to function and move forward? Look, you built something that is worth protecting, but a business that can't sustain its cash flow simply can't sustain its people, its mission, or its future. It deserves a financial setup that actually lets it breathe. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this gives you the clarity and the confidence to take that next step.